I was running late that morning, having promised my son Max I'd drop him off at the bus stop instead of making him walk. As we pulled up to the corner, my heart stopped. There was my 12-year-old, shoulders hunched, backpack clutched tightly to his chest, while a middle-aged woman in a crisp pantsuit loomed over him, her manicured finger jabbing the air just inches from his face. Even from 50 feet away, I could see the distress in Max's wide eyes. "I've never seen you here before," the woman was saying, her voice sharp and cutting through the quiet morning air. "This is a private neighborhood bus stop. I need to see proof of residence right now, or I'm calling security." Several other parents and children stood nearby, visibly uncomfortable, but no one stepped in. I quickly pulled my unmarked police car to the curb, careful not to draw attention to the government plates. We'd only moved to Oak Ridge Estates 3 weeks earlier, and I'd been deliberate about keeping my position private. Being the police chief in a small town like Ridgemont meant people treated you differently, and I wanted Max to have as normal a childhood as possible after losing his mom 2 years ago. I stepped out of the car just as the woman's voice rose another octave. "Do you understand what trespassing means, young man? I'm the HOA president, and I have every right to question suspicious individuals in our community." Max's voice, barely audible, was trembling. "I live here. My dad and I just moved in on Maple Drive," Max said quietly. The woman, who I would soon learn was Karen Whitfield, the notorious head of the Homeowners Association Community Standards Committee, scoffed loud enough for everyone to hear. "That's exactly what someone who doesn't belong would say. Maple Drive? Really? Which house number? Who lived there before? Why haven't I seen your parents at any community meetings?" I approached slowly, keeping my voice calm and steady, the way I'd learned over 2 decades in law enforcement. "Excuse me," I said evenly. "Is there a problem here?" Karen turned to me with a look that oozed condescending superiority. She looked to be in her late 40s, sporting an expensive blonde bob and an outfit that practically shouted, "I'd like to speak to the manager." The gold HOA president pin on her lapel caught the morning sun. "I'm handling a situation," she said curtly, barely glancing at me. "This child claims to live in our neighborhood, but I've never seen him before. And I know everyone who belongs here. We've had issues with non-residents trying to use our private amenities." Max turned to me, relief washing over his face. "Dad." Karen's eyebrows shot up. She looked from Max to me, clearly recalibrating but not backing down. "Oh, you're his father? Well, as I was saying, as president of the Homeowners Association, it's my responsibility to ensure neighborhood security. We have strict protocols about who can use the bus stop. I'll need to see your community ID card." By now, the other parents were watching closely. Some looked uncomfortable. Others wore expressions of resigned acceptance. I could tell this wasn't Karen's first power trip. One mother caught my eye and gave me a small apologetic look. "Mom," I said, keeping my tone measured. "My son. And I moved into 478 Maple Drive 3 weeks ago." "Harrison Place," I said firmly. "We're registered residents, and Max has every right to wait at this bus stop." Karen crossed her arms, her crimson-painted fingernails tapping impatiently against her designer handbag. "Everyone knows the community bylaws require new residents to check in with the HOA office and obtain proper identification before using community facilities," she said. "The bus stop is one of those facilities. I don't make the rules, I just enforce them." She added that last line with a smile that didn't even attempt to reach her eyes. I placed a reassuring hand on Max's shoulder. "Go wait in the Lee car for a minute, buddy. The bus will be here soon. I just need to take care of something." Once Max was safely inside, I turned back to Karen. This wasn't our first encounter with the HOA. In the few short weeks we'd lived in Oak Ridge Estates, we'd already received notices about our mailbox being 2 inches too low, our window trim not being the approved shade of beige, and our recycling bin being visible from the street for more than 4 hours after pickup. "Ms. Whitfield, is it?" I asked, though I already knew exactly who she was. Her name had been on the welcome packet she'd personally hand-delivered, along with a 3-page list of immediate violations. "That's right," she replied with a self-satisfied tilt of her chin. "Karen Whitfield, HOA president for 7 consecutive terms." Her chest puffed slightly with pride. "Well, Ms. Whitfield, I think there's been a misunderstanding," I said evenly. "Interrogating a minor without a parent present crosses several boundaries, both legal and ethical. My son was clearly distressed by your approach." Karen huffed, waving off my concern. "I have full authority from the association board to question anyone on community property. It's for everyone's safety. We've had vandalism, and the board voted unanimously to tighten security. If your son had proper identification, this wouldn't have been an issue. Something about the way she spoke, self-righteous, unbending, flipped a switch in me. It was time to stop playing the polite new neighbor. I reached into my jacket and pulled out my badge, keeping it low enough that the nearby children wouldn't see, but high enough for Karen to get a clear look. "Chief Thomas Reynolds," I said. "Ridgemont Police Department. And what I just witnessed was you harassing my 12-year-old son while he waited for the school bus. Something that not only violates HOA policies, but may also constitute intimidation of a minor under state law." The change in Karen's expression was immediate and almost comical. The flush of self-importance drained from her face. Her mouth opened, then closed, then opened again before any sound managed to emerge. Chief, I had no idea you were..." "This is just a misunderstanding," she stammered, her voice suddenly pitched an octave higher. "I was simply doing my duty as HOA president to ensure community safety. If someone had told me who you were..." "That's exactly the problem, Miss Whitfield," I said, cutting her off gently but firmly, my voice calm and low. "You shouldn't need to know that I'm the police chief to treat a child with basic decency and respect. Any child, regardless of who their parent is, deserves better than to be publicly confronted and accused of trespassing on their way to school." The rumble of the approaching school bus grew louder in the distance. I motioned for Max to come back over. Karen was still trying to gather herself, her earlier confidence now visibly unraveling under the weight of the parents' silent stares. No one was pretending not to watch anymore. "I'll be filing an official report about this incident," I continued. "Not as a resident, but as a law enforcement officer concerned about the harassment of minors in this community. I'd also like to review the specific HOA bylaw that grants you the authority to interrogate children without a parent present. I imagine your board's legal counsel would be very interested in reviewing that particular policy." One of the other parents, a woman who had been standing off to the side, finally stepped forward. "She did the same thing to my daughter last month," she said, her voice steady but quiet. "Accused her of bringing an outsider to the bus stop and threatened to fine us. We've been too afraid to say anything. Karen runs the violations committee." Another parent nodded in agreement. "She banned my landscaping company from the neighborhood because they left their truck in my driveway too long. Cost me over $1,000 to find a replacement." Karen's face had gone from pale to crimson, but this time it was the flush of humiliation, not authority. She opened her mouth to respond but found no words. "This is ridiculous," she finally muttered. "I've spent 8 years keeping this community safe, preserving our property values. You have no idea what would happen if we didn't have proper standards and enforcement." The school bus pulled up. I gave Max a quick hug. "Have a good day at school, buddy. Don't worry about any of this." He nodded and boarded, casting a final wary glance back at Karen. As the bus pulled away, I turned to face her one last time. She clutched her designer handbag like a shield, visibly rattled. "Miss Whitfield," I said evenly, "I expect to see you at the police station this afternoon. We have more to discuss." "This afternoon," I continued, "you'll provide a formal statement regarding your practice of questioning minors. Let's say 3 p.m., and I'll be attending the next HOA meeting to discuss more appropriate community security protocols, ones that don't involve intimidating children." Karen's lips thinned into a hard line. "You can't possibly believe this warrants police involvement. I was doing my job." "Harassment isn't part of anyone's job," I replied firmly. "And targeting children crosses a line. One that extends well beyond the reach of HOA regulations. In fact, your actions this morning could potentially lead to charges of harassment, intimidation, and impersonating a security official. In this state, that carries a fine of up to $5,000 and the possibility of jail time." The color drained from her face again. For the first time since I'd encountered her, Karen Whitfield was completely speechless. The other parents were no longer trying to hide their attention. Some watched with cautious sympathy. Others looked downright satisfied. Karen's reign over the neighborhood had clearly left more than a few bruises. A week later, a community-wide email went out announcing that Karen Whitfield had regretfully stepped down from her role as HOA president and Community Standards Committee chair following multiple complaints. The message noted she'd been fined $2,000 for harassment and ordered to complete 40 hours of community service. The HOA board also issued a formal apology, especially to families with children, and pledged to conduct a comprehensive review of all neighborhood policies and enforcement procedures. The next day, I saw Karen hurrying from her Mercedes too, her front door clutching her handbag and avoiding eye contact with everyone. I watched her go but felt no triumph in her fall from grace, only relief. Relief that the neighborhood's children, including my son, could now wait for the school, bus in peace.